Cole Hartley had been riding since sunrise, and the sky had already turned a soft orange by the time he reached the edge of the quiet desert town. The day had been long, the kind that drained strength from both man and horse. Still, Cole did not mind the silence of the open land. He found comfort in the soft wind brushing past him and the steady steps of his horse, Dusty, on the dusty road. For him, silence was a friend. After years of working with cattle and living away from crowded places, he had learned to enjoy moments where nothing demanded his attention. But that evening, something felt different. As he reached a broken wooden fence near an old barn, Dusty suddenly stopped. The horse's ears moved sharply, pointing toward the building. Cole frowned and gently ran his hand along the horse's neck, trying to calm him. Dusty was usually steady, not easily scared, so this sudden fear made Cole feel alert. Then he heard it, a soft sound, so faint he thought he had imagined it. He held his breath and listened again. A low, shaky whisper drifted out from the darkness of the half-broken barn. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. It sounded like a person, a woman, trying to speak but barely able to. Cole slid off his horse and took a quiet step forward. He didn't want to frighten whoever was inside, but he also knew he couldn't ignore a cry for help. The desert could be unforgiving, especially at night, when temperatures dropped and wild animals wandered nearby. Anyone hiding alone in a place like this needed help. As he moved closer, the whispering grew clearer. It was not angry, not loud, just tired and frightened. Cole gently pushed the old wooden door. It creaked loudly, echoing through the empty barn. For a moment, everything fell silent again. Then he heard her voice, soft, shaking, and filled with fear. "Just hurry up," she whispered, her breath trembling. "Then kill me." Cole froze where he stood. The words struck him like a punch, not because of their meaning, but because of the pain behind them. He had heard fear before. He had seen people in distress, but never had he heard a voice so certain that harm was coming. He stepped slowly into the barn, letting his boots make noise so she wouldn't think he was sneaking toward her. He lifted his hands slightly, showing he meant no harm. "Ma'am," he said in a calm, steady voice, "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't answer. He could only hear her uneven breathing. The barn was dim, with only a bit of light sneaking through cracks in the wood. As his eyes adjusted, he finally saw her. She was sitting on the ground near a broken stack of hay, her knees pulled close to her chest, her hair messy and her face tired. Mud covered parts of her clothes. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her hands were trembling. Cole took another step, slowly, carefully. "My name is Cole Hartley," he said gently. "I'm a rancher. I heard you call out. I want to help." The woman lifted her head a little. Even in the dim light, Cole could see how hollow her eyes looked. Her expression was a mix of confusion, fear, and exhaustion. It was as if she had been running for miles and had finally given up. "You're not with him?" she asked quietly. Cole shook his head. "No, ma'am. I don't know who you're talking about. I was just passing by." She looked unsure. She tightly gripped her sleeves as if expecting him to grab her. Cole kept his distance, aware that sudden movements might scare her. "I'm staying right here," he said softly. "I won't come any closer unless you want me to." The woman watched him for several seconds, her eyes darting between him and the barn door as if she expected someone else to appear at any moment. Finally, her shoulders dropped slightly, not relaxed, just a tiny touch less tense. "What's your name?" Cole asked. "Ava," she whispered. Cole nodded. "Ava. All right. That's a pretty name. Are you hurt?" Ava didn't speak, but her slow nod answered him. Cole knew she needed help, but he also understood that trust wasn't something she could give easily. "Do you want to come outside?" he asked softly. "There's more light." And the air's better. I can help you walk if you want, or you can lean on the barn if that feels safer. Ava hesitated. She looked at the doorway and then at Cole. She seemed unsure whether leaving the barn would expose her to more danger. But the gentle tone in Cole's voice seemed to reach a part of her that still believed someone might be kind. "I can try," she whispered. Cole stepped backward, giving her space, allowing her to move without feeling pressured. Ava slowly pushed herself up using the barn wall. Her legs were unsteady and she wobbled, catching herself just in time. Cole took half a step forward, but he stopped, remembering she didn't want him too close. "You're doing fine," he said softly. Ava moved slowly toward the door, and once she stepped outside, the cool evening breeze brushed over her face. She took a long, shaky breath as if she hadn't breathed freely in days. Cole guided Dusty away from her so she wouldn't feel squeezed between them. Ava's eyes widened slightly as she looked at the horse, but Dusty lowered his head gently, sensing her fear. "He's calm," Cole said. "He won't bother you." Ava nodded, though she still kept a bit of distance. Now that he could see her clearly in the fading sunlight, Cole noticed how pale she was. Her clothes were torn in places, dirty from what looked like days of travel. Her shoes were worn down. She looked dehydrated and exhausted. Cole didn't ask questions yet. He didn't want to push her. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Ava didn't answer, but her eyes softened. That was enough for Cole. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a wrapped piece of bread and a bottle of clean water. He placed them gently on the ground several feet away from her and stepped back. "You can take them," he said softly. "They're for you." Ava stared at the items for a long moment before slowly kneeling down and picking up the water bottle. Her hands shook as she opened it. Cole looked away to give her privacy. When she finally began drinking, he could hear how dry her throat must have been. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible. "You're welcome," Cole replied. The sun began slipping behind the horizon, casting long shadows over the land. Cole knew it wasn't safe to leave her out here. The nights got cold, and wild animals wandered close to the old barns, but he didn't want to frighten her by insisting she come with him. "Ava," he said softly, "I have a guest cabin near my ranch. It's quiet, safe, and no one else stays there. You can rest there if you want. I won't bother you. You can lock the door if it makes you feel better." Ava looked up at him, fear still visible in her eyes, but mixed now with something new. Hope, small and fragile. Why are you helping me?" she asked. Cole met her gaze with honesty. "Because you look like you've been alone too long, and no one should be that alone." Ava swallowed, her eyes filling with tears she didn't let fall. For the first time since he found her, she didn't look like she was expecting harm. She looked like she wanted to believe him, but was scared to trust that kindness was real. Finally, she whispered, "Okay, I'll go." Cole offered a small, reassuring smile. "All right, we'll go slow. You can ride, or I can walk beside you. Whatever makes you comfortable." Ava took a deep breath. She didn't say she trusted him, but she didn't need to. The fact that she agreed to leave the barn spoke louder than anything. As the last light of day faded, Cole helped her begin a new path, one she never expected, one she didn't believe she deserved, but one that would change her life in ways she couldn't imagine. And as they walked toward the cabin, Cole felt something heavy lift inside him. He didn't know Ava's story yet, but he knew one thing without doubt. The moment she whispered those hopeless words in that barn, everything changed. He had found her in the dark, but he would not let her return to it. Not now. Not ever. Cole walked slowly beside Ava as they moved toward the small cabin near his ranch. The sky had turned deeper shades of blue, and the cool night breeze brushed over the land. Ava kept her arms wrapped tightly around herself. as if the darkness still felt dangerous. Cole didn't rush her. Every few steps, he quietly checked to make sure she was still steady on her feet. When the small wooden cabin finally came into view, Ava looked at it with a mixture of relief and fear. It wasn't fancy, just a little place with a porch and a warm lantern hanging outside, but after what she had been through, even safety felt unfamiliar. Cole had lit the lantern earlier that morning, never expecting someone else would need it so badly. "This is it," Cole said gently. "No one ever comes here but me." Ava stayed silent, her eyes moving across the cabin like she was studying whether it could truly be safe. Cole walked ahead, opened the door, and stepped aside so she wouldn't feel crowded. Ava hesitated at the doorway. She looked inside, then back at the empty land behind her, and then back to Cole. He kept his hands by his sides, showing no sign of pressure. "You can stay here as long as you need," he said softly. Ava finally stepped inside, moving carefully like she expected something to jump out at her. Instead, she found a small bed in the corner, a clean table, a chair, and folded blankets. Nothing strange, nothing threatening. Cole stayed near the door. "Is it okay?" he asked. Ava nodded slowly. "It's clean." "I figured everyone deserves at least that much," he replied. Ava set the water bottle on the table and sat down. For a moment, she just looked at her hands resting in her lap. They were trembling again. She tried to hide it, but Cole noticed. "If you want, I can bring some warm food," he offered. "Just simple stew. Nothing heavy." Ava didn't speak, but she nodded. Cole stepped outside, closing the door halfway so she wouldn't feel trapped. He hurried to his main house, prepared a small bowl of stew, and carried it back carefully. When he entered, he placed the food on the table. Ava watched him with worried eyes, as if kindness confused her. Cole could sense that she was used to people expecting something in return. "You can eat first," Cole said, stepping back again. "I'll stay over here." Ava glanced at the steaming bowl, her hunger clear, but she waited a moment before she finally picked up the spoon. She took slow bites, as if she wasn't used to warm meals anymore. Cole noticed how her shoulders finally loosened, just a little. After she finished, she whispered, "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me," Cole replied. A quiet moment passed between them. The cabin felt warmer now. Ava looked around, touching the blanket on the bed with uncertain fingers. Cole realized she was checking if it was truly real, if this kindness wasn't a trick. "Ava," he said softly, "you don't have to tell me anything, not unless you want to. But I want you to know something. You're safe here." Ava stared at the floor. "Safe," she repeated quietly, as if testing the word. She took a shaky breath and slowly rolled up her sleeves, not all the way, just enough to reveal faint scars along her forearms. They were old, faded lines, but Cole understood immediately. They were the kind someone carried for years, not from accidents, but from emotional pain. Cole looked away purposely, not wanting her to feel exposed. "You don't need to explain," he said. "I'm not judging." Ava lowered her sleeves, her eyes glossy. She swallowed the emotion before speaking. "He used to tell me no one would help me, that everyone was like him." Cole's chest tightened. He was wrong. Ava looked at him as if she had never heard anyone say that with such certainty. Her voice cracked slightly. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've met good people," Cole answered. "And you deserve good people around you." Ava blinked hard to hold back tears. She hadn't heard the word deserve in a long time, maybe never in a kind way. She wrapped her arms around herself again as if she needed the comfort. "I tried to leave so many times," she whispered. "But every time I did, he found me. I thought hiding in that barn would be the last place he'd look. I didn't expect anyone else to find me." Cole listened carefully, not interrupting. Her voice was soft, and each sentence felt like a piece of her heartbreak slipping out. I walked for days, she continued. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I couldn't stay with him anymore. I kept thinking if I could just get far enough away, maybe I could breathe again. Cole nodded. You did the right thing. You kept going. Ava looked down again. I wasn't sure I could trust you, she admitted. When you came into the barn, I thought you were someone like him. Cole leaned gently against the wall, keeping enough distance so she wouldn't feel overwhelmed. I get that. After what you've been through, trusting anyone would be hard. Ava studied his face, searching for anything that might prove her fear right. But Cole's expression remained calm and warm. He wasn't trying to impress her or act heroic. He was just being real, which was something she wasn't used to anymore. After a long moment, she whispered, Thank you for not asking too many questions. I'll only ask things that help keep you safe, he said simply. Everything else can wait. Ava broke eye contact, overwhelmed by the kindness. She sat on the edge of the bed, holding her hands together tightly. I'm not used to people being gentle. You will be, Cole replied softly. One day, and you won't have to look over your shoulder anymore. The lantern flickered softly, casting warm light across the room. For the first time since leaving her old life behind, Ava's breathing slowed. She wasn't fully calm, but she wasn't in pure fear either. It was something in between, something new. Cole checked the time and stepped toward the door. I'll be right outside in the main house. If you need anything, you can knock or call out. You don't have to open the door unless you want to. Ava looked at him, surprised again. You're not staying inside? Cole shook his head lightly. You deserve space and privacy. I keep my word, Ava. Her eyes softened, and a small, tiny breath escaped from her chest. A sound almost like relief. Thank you, she said again, though this time her voice carried more emotion. Cole tipped his hat slightly and stepped outside. The night air felt heavy with the weight of everything she had just shared, but he was glad she trusted him enough to speak at all. Ava sat on the bed, staring at the closed door. The cabin felt safe, quiet. The kind of quiet that didn't feel frightening. She touched the blanket again, then lay down carefully. For the first time in a long time, her body allowed itself to relax a little. She whispered to herself, Maybe things can change. Outside, Cole sat on the porch of his main house, unable to shake the image of her tired eyes and trembling hands. He knew she had scars she didn't show and fears she still carried. But he also knew something else. No matter how broken she felt, she had reached out for help when she stepped outside that barn with him. And Cole made a silent promise to himself. He would protect her. He would help her heal. And he would make sure she never had to whisper desperate words again. Not while he was around. Cole barely slept that night. Even though the quiet ranch was peaceful as always, his thoughts kept returning to Ava. Her shaky voice, her tired eyes, the way she held her sleeves like they were the only protection she had left. He had seen fear before, but he had never seen someone so exhausted from carrying it for so long. He sat on the porch with a warm cup of coffee, watching the stars slowly fade as dawn approached. The world around him was calm, the sound of distant cattle, the wind brushing the grass, and the soft glow of morning light spreading across the land. But inside Cole's mind, nothing felt calm. He kept thinking about the moment Ava lifted her sleeves, revealing scars that told more than she ever said aloud. She didn't need to explain her whole past. He already knew enough to understand that she had been hurt deeply, not just physically, but emotionally, in a way that made people doubt themselves and lose trust in the world. Cole hated the thought of anyone going through that. He stood up and looked toward the small wooden cabin where Ava slept. The lantern inside had gone dark during the night. He hoped she had at least slept a few hours without fear waking her up. The more he looked at the cabin, the more determined he felt. Ava had shown him a part of her story without saying much, but it was enough. She didn't need anyone to fight for her with fists. She needed someone to stand for her with honesty, with protection, with true support. Cole knew that if he didn't step in, her past might find her again. And he couldn't let that happen. He set his empty cup down and nodded to himself. "I'll keep her safe, I promise," he whispered into the morning air. Around mid-morning, he walked to the cabin and gently knocked on the door, careful not to startle her. There was no answer at first. He waited patiently. A few moments later, he heard slow footsteps. Then the door opened just a little. Ava peered out cautiously. "Good morning," Cole said softly. Ava stepped back, allowing a bit more space between them. Sorry. I didn't wake up earlier," she said quietly. "No need to be sorry," Cole answered. "You needed rest." Ava brushed her hair behind her ear. "I kept waking up. I'm not used to sleeping in quiet places. Silence feels strange sometimes." Cole understood. "Silence can feel loud when you've lived in fear for a long time," he said gently. Ava looked surprised that he understood it so well. "I brought some breakfast," Cole said. "Just fruit and warm bread. You can eat when you feel ready." She took the plate softly, her movements still cautious. "Thank you." Cole didn't enter the cabin. He stayed outside, leaning lightly against the wall so Ava wouldn't feel pressured. "I'll be checking on the horses later. If you want some fresh air, you're welcome to sit on the porch." Ava nodded slowly. "Maybe. After I eat." Cole smiled lightly. "Take your time." He walked back to the barn, giving her space. But Ava's eyes followed him as he left. She wasn't afraid of him now, not exactly. She was simply unsure how to handle kindness. It felt unreal, like something she might wake from at any moment. While Cole worked with the horses, Ava quietly stepped out of the cabin. She held the blanket around her shoulders even though the sun was warm. She watched Cole, noticing how gentle he was with the animals. The horses trusted him easily. They came to him willingly, letting him brush their manes and whisper soft instructions. Ava hugged the blanket tighter. She couldn't remember the last time she felt safe enough to simply watch someone work. When Cole noticed her standing there, he didn't call out or wave. He just gave a gentle nod, letting her know he saw her without drawing any attention. "If you feel comfortable," he said softly, "you can sit on that bench. It's closer to the sun." Ava looked at the bench, then at him. After a moment, she walked slowly toward it, her steps unsure but steady. She sat down carefully, holding the blanket around her like a shield. Cole continued brushing Dusty. "Horses can sense people's hearts," he said casually. "They don't judge. They just feel." Ava watched Dusty, who flicked his ears gently and looked toward her with soft curiosity. "He's looking at you," she said quietly. "He thinks you're calm," Cole replied. Ava almost laughed, softly, faintly. "Calm isn't something I've been for a long time." Cole nodded. "Calm doesn't have to come all at once. It can come in small pieces." Ava lowered her eyes. She wasn't used to this, talking without fear. She wasn't used to someone listening without trying to control her. It felt strange, but in a way that warmed her chest. After a moment of silence, Ava spoke. "Do you ever get angry, Cole?" Cole paused, gently patting Dusty. "Everyone gets angry sometimes." "But you don't look like someone who does," Ava whispered. Cole turned to face her fully. "I do. Especially when I see someone being treated unfairly." Ava froze for a moment, holding her breath. Cole continued in a calm voice. "When I saw how scared you were yesterday, something inside me felt heavy. Not angry at you, angry at what you've been through. Angry that someone made you believe pain was normal. Ava swallowed hard. I used to think I deserved it. I thought maybe something was wrong with me. Cole stepped closer, slowly, so she wouldn't feel cornered. He crouched down a short distance away, keeping space between them. Ava, you didn't deserve any of it. Not a single moment. Her eyes filled with emotion she had been holding back for years. Tears slipped down her cheeks silently. She didn't sob or break down. She just let the tears fall like she didn't know how to stop them. Cole didn't move closer. He kept still so she wouldn't feel overwhelmed. It's okay, he whispered. You can cry. There's nothing wrong with that. Ava wiped her cheeks shakily. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be, Cole replied. You're healing. A long silence passed. Ava took slow breaths, the blanket slipping from her shoulders slightly. She didn't pull it back up. She just sat, warming in the sunlight. Finally, she said, You don't even know me. Why do you care this much? Cole looked at her with steady eyes. Because goodness doesn't need a reason. And because I know what it's like to wish someone would care. Ava stared at him, struggling to believe someone could be that sincere. Cole continued, his voice stronger now. I can't change your past, but I can make sure your future doesn't look anything like it. Ava blinked. How? I'll protect you, Cole said simply. Not by hurting anyone, not by chasing anyone, by making sure the right people know what's going on, by standing beside you, by being someone you can trust. Ava's hands shook again, but this time not from fear. Maybe from the sudden weight of hope she hadn't expected. And what if he comes? She asked. Cole met her gaze with certainty. Then I will make sure you're not alone. I'll make sure the law stops him. And I'll stay by your side through it. Ava inhaled slowly, deeply, as if taking her first real breath in years. She didn't say anything for a long time, but when she finally looked at Cole, something was different. Her eyes still held fear, but also something new. Respect, trust, maybe even the beginning of safety. Cole stood up and gave her space again, letting her sit with her emotions. As he walked back toward the horses, he made a silent promise in his heart, one stronger than anything he had ever sworn before. He vowed, quietly, deeply, that he would never let Ava face her past alone. He vowed that her scars would not define her future. He vowed to be the kind of man she could trust, and he vowed to make sure that whatever pain she ran from never found her again, not through anger, not through threats, but through protection, truth, and unwavering support. It was a vow he intended to keep, no matter what came next. The next morning began with a soft, golden light spreading across the open land. The sky looked calm, almost peaceful, as if it wanted to tell Sarah that life was slowly changing for her. She stepped outside the small cabin with a warm cup of tea in her hands. The early air felt cool against her skin, and for a moment she closed her eyes, letting herself breathe in that calmness she had missed for so many years. James the cowboy was already awake. He was fixing one of the wooden fences near the barn. He looked tired but focused. When he noticed Sarah watching him, he paused and gave her a gentle smile. It was a small smile, but enough to make her feel that someone truly saw her, not as a burden, not as a shadow, but as a person who mattered. She walked toward him slowly. You wake up really early, she said softly. He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. Habit, he replied. The ranch keeps me busy. There was silence for a moment, but it was not heavy. It felt safe, like both of them were learning how to exist in the same space without fear or tension. Then James pointed toward the mountains far in the distance. Sometimes, he said, when things get too heavy, I ride out there. It helps me think. Sarah wrapped her fingers around her cup a little tighter. I used to think too, she said quietly, but my thoughts were always crowded. James looked at her with gentle concern. They won't stay crowded forever, he said. Not if you give yourself time. His words settled softly in her heart. Time. She had never felt she had any. Her days used to be filled with anxiety and uncertainty. But here on the ranch, time moved differently. Slow, steady, kind. Later in the afternoon, Sarah helped James with simple chores. She cleaned the porch, organized some old tools, and even tried to help with feeding the horses. She was nervous at first, especially when a big brown horse nudged her arm with its nose. But James chuckled softly. He likes you, he said. Animals can sense a good heart. Sarah didn't know what to say. She had never been called good-hearted before. Her throat tightened, and she looked down to hide the sudden emotion in her eyes. But James noticed. He didn't point it out, didn't make her uncomfortable. He simply took the bucket of feed from her and continued the task, giving her a moment to breathe. As the day went on, Sarah felt herself slowly opening up. Just a little, just enough to feel the sunlight on parts of her she had kept hidden for too long. Around sunset, James made dinner. Simple food, but warm and comforting. Sarah sat at the table quietly, watching him move around the kitchen. He worked with a calm rhythm, as if he had cooked the same meal 100 times before. When he set the plate in front of her, she whispered, "Thank you." He sat across from her. "You don't need to thank me for every little thing," he said with a soft smile. "I know," she replied, "but I want to." They ate in silence, but it was a peaceful silence. Sarah felt like she could breathe without worrying if someone was judging her every move. She felt something she had not felt in a long time: comfort. After dinner, James stepped outside to check on the horses one last time. Sarah stayed inside, cleaning the dishes slowly. Each movement calmed her. It reminded her of normal life, something she had missed deeply. When James returned, he found her sitting on the small sofa near the window. The moonlight shone across her face, highlighting the calm expression she rarely wore. "You look better today," he said gently. She nodded. "I feel different. Not completely okay, but something is changing." "That's good," he replied, taking a seat across from her. "Healing doesn't happen in a day, but every moment you spend choosing peace is a step forward." She looked at him carefully. "Why are you helping me this much? You don't even know me." James leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I don't need to know every detail to know kindness is needed. Everyone deserves a chance to feel safe." Sarah looked down, her voice soft. "I was not shown kindness for a long time." "Well," he said, "you're being shown it now." His voice was steady and sincere, and Sarah felt a warmth rise in her chest. Something she had almost forgotten, the feeling of being valued. Later that night, a soft wind blew against the windows. The sky outside was dark but full of stars. Sarah couldn't sleep, so she stepped outside the cabin. The fresh night air wrapped around her like a gentle blanket. She sat on the porch, pulling her knees close. The silence of the night was calming. She looked up at the stars, wondering how many nights she had missed looking at them because she was too afraid to step outside. A few minutes later, she heard quiet footsteps. James walked out and sat beside her, not too close, just near enough to let her know she wasn't alone. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "My mind is still adjusting." He nodded. "Mine too, sometimes." She turned to him, surprised. "You? But you seem so strong." He laughed under his breath, a gentle, honest sound. "Strength doesn't mean you don't have wounds," he said. "It just means you keep going." Sarah looked back at the sky. "I'm trying." "I know," he said. And that's enough. She didn't realize a single tear had slipped down her cheek until James handed her a small handkerchief. She wiped her face quickly, embarrassed. "Sorry," she whispered. "Don't be," he said. "Tears aren't weakness. They're release." His voice was calm, carrying the kind of understanding that made her heart soften. She felt safe sitting beside him under the quiet night sky. After a long moment, she finally said something she had been holding inside. "James, do you really think my life can change?" He looked at her steadily. "Not think," he said softly. "I know it can." The certainty in his voice made her chest tighten with emotion. For the first time in years, hope didn't feel like an impossible thing. It felt like a small flame slowly growing inside her. "Thank you," she whispered again. He smiled at her, gentle and reassuring. "You're not alone anymore, Sarah." She inhaled shakily. Those words reached deep inside her, deeper than anything had in a long time. For the first time, the night didn't feel cold. The world didn't feel frightening. She felt herself slowly trusting that maybe, just maybe, life was giving her a new beginning. She stayed there with James, watching the stars. Not saying much, not needing to. Sometimes silence can be more healing than words, and Sarah needed healing more than anything. What she didn't realize yet was that this calm night was only the beginning. There was still a long journey ahead, one filled with truth, courage, and unexpected strength. But with James by her side, she no longer felt like she had to walk it alone. She was learning to breathe again. She was learning to live again. And this quiet night on the porch was the first step toward a future she never thought she would have. The next day began with a soft morning breeze moving across the open fields. Sarah woke up feeling a little lighter than before, as if the long night on the porch had washed away a small part of the heaviness she had been carrying. She stretched slowly and stepped outside. The smell of warm earth and fresh grass greeted her like a gentle welcome. James was already awake, working near the barn. He had a calm way of moving, like someone who understood the land and trusted it. When he saw Sarah walking toward him, he nodded with an easy smile. "You slept better?" he asked. "A little," she replied. "I think the night air helped." "That's good," he said. "Small steps matter." She liked how he always said things that made her feel safe, not pressured. No rush, no fear, just slow healing. They walked together toward the horses. James handed her a small brush. "Want to help me clean their coats today?" She hesitated. Horses still made her nervous, not because they were dangerous, but because she wasn't used to anything so large and powerful being gentle. But she nodded anyway. James brought her near a soft-eyed chestnut horse named River. The horse lowered its head slightly, almost like a greeting. Sarah lifted her hand slowly, and when River didn't pull away, she smiled a little. "He likes you," James said with a soft chuckle. "I'm not sure," she whispered. "I am." She began brushing the horse's coat carefully. The gentle motion calmed her mind. The horse's warm breath touched her hand every now and then, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Trust. As she worked, James quietly watched to make sure she felt comfortable. He didn't step in unless she needed help. He let her learn at her own pace, which made her feel capable again. When they were done, James brought 2 cups of warm milk tea and handed one to her. They stood outside the barn, sipping slowly. The morning sun spread across the land like a soft blanket. "James," Sarah said softly. If someone keeps remembering their past, how do they stop feeling afraid?" He thought for a moment before answering. "You don't force yourself to forget," he said. "Instead, you learn to build something new, something stronger." and little by little the new things become bigger than the old ones. She looked down at her cup. But what if the old things come back sometimes? They will, he said gently. But each time they do, you'll handle them better. His words settled in her heart like a warm truth. Later in the day, James showed Sarah how to plant small herbs near the house. They worked together, side by side, pressing seeds into the soil. Sarah felt something peaceful in her hands as they touched the earth. She realized she liked this, growing something from scratch, giving life instead of living in fear. At one point, Sarah asked quietly, "Do you ever feel alone out here?" James placed a seed carefully in the soil before answering. "Sometimes," he said. "But I've learned that being alone doesn't always mean being lonely. It can mean freedom, too." Sarah nodded slowly. She understood the difference now. Back then, she had felt trapped, even when surrounded by people. But here, even with just one person nearby, she felt a strange, soft sense of belonging. When the sun reached high in the sky, they took a break under the shade of a large tree. Sarah lay back on the soft grass, feeling the cool shade above her. James sat beside her with his hat resting on his knee. A calm silence filled the space between them. "James," Sarah said after a while. "Yes? You think I can really change my life?" He turned toward her. "I don't just think it," he said gently. "I see it happening." She felt something inside her grow warm. Sometimes she still struggled to believe in herself, but whenever James spoke, she felt like he was lending her a little bit of his strength. Later in the afternoon, Sarah found an old wooden box near the porch. It had been left untouched for years. Curious, she opened it and discovered old drawings, letters, and small items filled with memories of the ranch. When James saw her holding the box, he walked over. "My mother's things," he said quietly. "She loved to draw." Sarah looked at the sketches. Mountains, horses, sunsets, the ranch house. They were simple, but filled with emotion. "They're beautiful," she whispered. He nodded. "She used to tell me that art helps the heart speak." Sarah traced her fingers gently over one drawing of a hillside during sunset. She wondered if maybe she should try drawing again. She used to love it when she was younger, before life grew heavy. "Do you want to keep them safe?" she asked. "I keep them here so I don't forget her," James replied. "But maybe you can look through them. Sometimes memories can give comfort." Sarah smiled softly. "Thank you." In the evening, the sky turned a soft orange, fading into pink. The land felt peaceful, touched by the calm beauty of the setting sun. James and Sarah sat outside on the porch, watching the colors stretch across the horizon. "It's beautiful," Sarah said quietly. "It is," James agreed. "The land always knows how to end the day gently." She looked at him. "I think this place is healing me." "That's what I hoped," he whispered, almost too softly for her to hear. There was something in his voice, something warm, protective, and sincere. Sarah felt her heart soften in a way she hadn't expected. She wasn't falling in love. That wasn't what this moment was about. It was something different. It was trust growing slowly, like sunlight in a dark room. When the stars began to appear, Sarah leaned back in her chair and sighed. "I used to think I wouldn't see peaceful days again." "You'll see many more," James replied. "You're stronger than you know." She turned her head toward him. "You always say that." "That's because it's true." She didn't argue. Instead, she let the silence wrap around them like a warm blanket. The gentle wind brushed her hair, the stars twinkled softly above, and for the first time in a long time she felt like she belonged somewhere. Before going inside, Sarah said softly, "James, thank you for today." He gave her a gentle look. You don't owe me thanks. I'm just glad you're finding peace. She stepped inside the cabin, feeling lighter. She washed her face, changed into a clean nightdress, and stood for a moment in front of the small mirror. She noticed something surprising. Her eyes looked calmer, less tired. Her face looked softer, not filled with the weight of fear. She touched the mirror gently. "I'm changing," she whispered to herself. Outside, James sat on the porch alone. He watched the stars and let out a long, thoughtful breath. Helping Sarah reminded him of something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. He knew she was still healing, still dealing with memories, still learning to trust. But he also knew she had come a long way from the first day he met her. That night, Sarah slept peacefully. No nightmares, no sudden fear waking her up, just quiet rest. Her body needed it. Her heart needed it more. And far away, in the calm silence of the ranch, the world seemed to be preparing the next steps of her story, steps that would bring her closer to truth, closer to her strength, and closer to the life she never thought she deserved. But for now, she rested. And for the first time in a very long time, her rest was peaceful.